Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well, and welcome to tonight's second half. Before we jump into it, a couple links. As you all know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They all were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost you a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all these things, they really do help this channel to continue to grow and go, and yes, folks, they definitely do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump into tonight's second half, shall we? Today's first encounter is a subscriber encounter. I went to southern Colorado to pick up some hay with several friends yesterday. The hay is good quality, but more affordable than buying from a feed store where they'll charge you an arm and a leg. The catch is you have to pick it off the field yourself. I can't pick up those heavy hay bales, so a married couple, they can. Both guys are big boys. It's not a problem for them. However, I can help by driving their truck slowly up and down the pasture between the bales of hay that are lined up on each side of the trailer, where they can load the bales on. As they load, I can enjoy the beautiful scenery. I've seen elk, deer, coyote drinking out of the irrigation ditch that runs all around his pasture on different occasions. On the last leg of them loading the hay onto the trailer, I look over to the next pasture and start watching the rancher's horses grazing when I notice a bare spot in the pasture. It looked like the ground had been scraped. Then this horrific, god-awful smell hit me. The guys noticed it as well. We were all gagging. They hurried up loading the hay onto the trailer. The rancher met us on the way out so we could pay him. We told him about the smell just in case he didn't know about it. He did know about it and proceeded to tell us last week he found a deer carcass in the horse pasture I mentioned above. He said it was shredded up. He had never seen anything like it. He mentioned that the smell was so bad that he threw up on the spot. The dogs refused to go near the deer carcass, which he found was odd. He left and returned with his backhoe to take it and drop it off into the back of his property in a heavily wooded area for the coyotes. He said the minute he picked up the deer carcass with the backhoe, the coyotes started to howl like crazy. He said that creeped him out because he knew they were watching him. When he dropped the deer carcass at the edge of the woods, he then heard a deep howl along with the coyotes. He said it didn't sound like a coyote. He said he got very nervous and got out of there. I wonder what attacked that deer a week ago that could leave such a terrible smell behind that we could smell it a week later. Almost forgot to mention this part. Remember the scraped bare spot I noticed on the horse's pasture? He told us that he scraped out the dirt where the deer carcass was lying to get much of the smell out of there. It sounds like a Dogman, but because he didn't see anything, I can't confirm it. That deep howl makes me think. This next encounter is a subscriber-submitted encounter, something that he felt was very, very interesting, and I did too, so that's why I'm going to share it with you. Crawford County woodsman has close encounter in Ozark National Forest. Jake Pixley is a lifelong resident of Crawford County, an avid hiker and woodsman, and published author. This week he experienced what he said had completely changed his perception of what he knows and doesn't know about the forest in general and the Ozark National Forest in particular. Pixby had what seems to be a Bigfoot sighting, and he doesn't care who believes him or if people think he's a crackpot. He says that before this week, he probably would have been among the first to ridicule the notion of an undiscovered bipedal species of something roaming around in the wilderness. 4 days ago, I would have said there is no such thing as a Sasquatch or Bigfoot, said the 39-year-old Pixley. On the backside of this thing, I have nothing to gain and probably a lot more to lose by going public with this deal. But I know what I saw. Pixley has written 3 published books, including 2 which he has sold rights to and 1 which is a pre-production to become a film. He has worked as a security specialist and is an expert in behavioral analysis. In other words, he isn't some attention-seeking hillbilly that had 1 too many beers and mistook a bear for a Bigfoot. On Monday, Pixley was hiking between White Rock and the Highland Trail about 10 a.m. when he heard something in the woods. There was sounds of walking in the woods and what Pixley describes as someone hitting the hard core of a log with a hard wooden stick, and someone moving rocks. There were also guttural growls. The sounds came from a small hill adjacent to the trail he was on. My first thought went to being a bear, because there are a lot of bears in this area, Pixley states. But I know bear behavior, and I have even had a bear encounter close up, and you are not going to hear them walking in the woods the way this thing was. I thought about a buck deer rubbing its antlers against a tree to remove its velvet, but what I was hearing didn't sound like that at all, states Pixley. I then thought maybe it was someone else, another human in the woods just messing with me. Pixley said he fired 1 shot from his .22 into the air as a warning, and whatever it was lurking in the brush and trails didn't run away. You know how you can sense things, Pixley said? Well, I had a distinct feeling of whatever this was wanted to cross the trail I was on, but it was avoiding me. But I really didn't think much more about it. When Pixley got home, he posted the experience on social media with the responses and comments lending themselves to being a possible Bigfoot. He also spoke with a biologist and other people he respects for their knowledge of the outdoors, and he decided to go back out the same area on Tuesday. I had noticed a lot of young bear tracks in the area on Monday, and in one place you could see where 13 of them had crossed the highway, like they were trying to get away from something, states Pixley. Some animals will do that as flight reaction to predators, like mountain lions, for example. But you usually see 1 or 2 bears together, or maybe a mama and her cubs. You could tell this was an exodus to get away from something, and the woods were just empty with wildlife in the immediate area. It's usually teeming with rabbits, squirrels, and all kinds of birds. The forest was eerily quiet. Pixley was still certain there was a logical explanation for the situation and decided to go fishing on Wednesday. Rain spoiled those plans, so he decided to drive around in the area close to where he had his experience and see if he could spot any more tracks coming out of the forest. I'm the guy you don't want to get behind driving through the woods, because I drive 5 to 10 miles an hour at times, with the window down looking for wildlife. That's just the old trapper and outdoors enthusiast coming out of me. Pixley was slowly driving a road approximately 3/4 of a mile from where he first heard the unexplained sounds on Monday. He saw movement on a little ridge on his driver's side and grabbed his cell phone. I wanted to get a picture of this thing, and in the rush, I put my camera on video. My adrenaline was pumping. I was trying to get my camera up and ready and drive at the same time. So I'm lucky I got anything at all. The resulting photo is blurry since it was taken from a single frame on the video. Other than the circle added by today in Fort Smith, The photo has not been enhanced. Once again, I don't care what anyone thinks or says. I saw something out there. I was as skeptical as the next guy, and I've always taken sightings like this with a grain of salt, but I know what I saw. Pixley will not disclose the exact location of the sighting, and elements of the video would probably tip someone off who is familiar with the area. He narrowed it down to an extreme northeast Crawford County near Washington County line. That's all we need is a bunch of Bigfoot bounty hunters out here with rifles shooting anything that moved, states Pixley, who refused to even say what he saw was a Bigfoot or Sasquatch. Plus, I respect the forest and all wildlife, and would hate to see someone go in there and kill whatever that was. Pixley said he was not going back to the area alone, but would be more than willing to take a reputable research team out there. But he is not looking to become famous or infamous because of my experience. Mainly the reason I even said anything in the first place is there are a lot of people that enjoy the outdoors who hike in that area. I just want them to be aware that there is something out there. I'm not saying it's Bigfoot, but in all my years in the woods and in all my experiences, I've never encountered anything like it. From the sounds on Monday, the animals fleeing the area, to what I saw yesterday, there is definitely something out there. I'm just putting out the information and people can do what they want with it. I will leave a link in the description so you guys can check out the circled pictures. I'm going to be the first person to debate that it's a Bigfoot. I really think 100% this is a Dogman. As we know that there are Dogman and Bigfoot in the Ozarks, but the bear, 13 of them running away is, they would run from a Sasquatch, I imagine, but a Dogman would be my best bet. The picture is blurry. You can sort of make out something, but from what I see a Dogman. Some of you may see Sasquatch, but you know what? It's something, and that's all that matters. Today's third encounter is a subscriber encounter. Hey Jeff, hope you're feeling well. Okay, let me say, edit this as you feel needed. I've been a subscriber since September. I believe we've had a few words and we both came to a mutual understanding. Anyway, while I was living in Camden, Tennessee, I was hearing a lot of coyote around the house. Till one night I heard and saw something moving down the middle of the street. It sounded human, howl, and could have been all I could say it's walking on two legs. Then went 20 miles to a friend's house for Thanksgiving. And I have told you this, I found a few tracks in the hay grass, but I wouldn't show my phone at all. I can say put down your forearm, where your elbow is, was the ball mark of the forearm to your hand. And if you curl your fingers, that's where the toe marks would be. About 2 inches further was the claw marks, and 2 inches wide, 4 inches long. I figured it was sitting on its haunches, just pad marks walking away, so I moved to Florida and wound up homeless. I was staying in a bird sanctuary in Daytona, a few times headed back to my camp. At the same spot, something would track me. Never saw it, but it happened like 3 times. Okay, so my camp was about a half a mile in. So this time it's 4 a.m., I'm heading out and almost out of the woods, about 300 yards left. I turned the corner and heard something. I was wearing a headlamp with a battery that was almost dead. I saw an eye looking at me, not eyes, Jeff, a single eye. The eye was goldish yellow to green color, depending on the angle. I was thinking it was a possum, climbing a tree like you might going up a tree, but then, at what would be the base was a shuffle step or a repositioning of feet. First, I'm 5'7". What, in Florida, can look at me in the eye, and when I say look at me eye to eye, was about 5'8" to 5'9". I was only about 3/4 feet from it when it stepped out. The eye disappeared, but I got the dark impression of a round head. I'm thinking Bigfoot. Now, I've been listening to many how to hunt and Dogman encounters, but then I saw the wolf's head at the same height as the eye, but about 4 inches further to the right. Ever seen the wily looking around the corner, but he's moving his body in the opposite direction? That's what the impression I got at this point. I backed up, turned, and kept heading out of the woods, walking, not running. I was thinking, whatever this is, it'll stay there, and I'm not messing with it. I got about 40 yards up the trail, and about 20 feet behind me I heard crack of a good-sized branch. Just a coincidence? Now I'm about the edge. I heard another crack, same distance, both on the side the eye was at. At this point, I turn around, stop, and just say, yo, I'm 51 years old. I'm too old to run. If you comin', let's do this. Nothing. I believe it was a young man. Something has also been running with the coyotes right in the middle of Daytona. Tech hits Port Orange. But no one who's not from there knows where it is. And at 4 a.m., I'm not stopping to ask if I could take a pic. I went back the same spot the next morning. The tree was only a sapling, only about an inch around, so I think that leaves out any small critter trying to climb up the tree. And the eye was the size of a medium chicken egg. This was around June 10th, 2020. So since I left Florida, I came to Nevada and was in Beatty, Nevada, closing up my mother's apartment as she went into a living arrangements. She's not able to stay by herself from a brain tumor operation. So anyway, 3 nights in a row, I went out to the porch to get boxes. This was between 3 and 3:30 a.m. All 3 nights, Jeff, I saw a fairy. Now, I know that's crazy, right? But I can tell you it was slime green and blue color. If you go to Pinterest and look up Janet Habbard drawing, it looked like that, wing-wise, but the wings were bigger now when it hovered. I saw the arms, head, and legs, but when it flew away, it looked like a cucumber, but with wings, and the motion of the wings beat up and down, but it also rippled like waves. I worked in that town, and the bats around there are only a couple 3 to 4 inches long. This fairy was about 8 to 10 inches body size. That was around the 24th of June. What's next, Jeff? A unicorn? Giant? I don't know, man. Anyway, if you want some more details, give me a call or email me. This next encounter is something that I found out of southern Illinois. Angie Dixon doesn't know what she saw, but she knows she's not crazy. I can't tell you what exactly it was that I saw, she states, recalling a time nearly 20 years ago her daughter and now ex-husband were driving near Makanda in the small hours of a February morning. It was around 2 a.m. Snow was falling. Dixon said she was driving with her then 10-year-old daughter to pick up her husband from his brother's home. On the way back, she was driving near Makanda when she saw what she thought was mailbox reflectors. She got closer and thought it was a mountain lion. At about 25 feet away, she realized she was wrong again. I realized that was no cougar, and it was actually crouched down in the middle of the road holding something. Dixon remembered. We just sat there and was watching it, and it just stood up, and it was huge. Dixon described it as completely black with defined muscles. All I could focus on was its eyes, she states. Red, yellow, glowing eyes. Then, Dixon said, it took off and was gone. Dixon's daughter was among the first to speak up. She was like, "Was that a Bigfoot, Mom?" Dixon recalled. Dixon admitted her sighting doesn't always make her popular. "I get laughed at all the time," Dixon says. "It's like I'm not fibbing, I'm not lying, and I'm not saying what it was because I don't know what it was. I have no clue. But that's what I saw," she states. She's not alone. Far from it. Monster sightings are woven in the fabric of southern Illinois. The Tuttle Bottoms Monster in Saline County, the Big Muddy Monster in Jackson County, big black cats, giant snakes, and little red men are all familiar folk tales. For some, they are more than folklore. "We are knee-deep in it," Zach Starrick says. He is the chief member of the Southern Illinois Monsters Hunter Group. He investigates reports of unexplained sightings in Southern Illinois and throughout the U.S. Starrick, a Williamson County native, said he feels like Illinois is a particularly special place when it comes to cryptozoology, which is a study of mysterious beasts and entities from folklore. Illinois is a creepy place, and it's also a very haunted place, he recalled. In fact, he said in 2017, Illinois ranked second out of all 50 states for Bigfoot sightings. Southern Illinois, in particular, has its own vivid collection of folk tales and mysterious monsters. The most famous likely being the Big Muddy Monster, the region's version of Bigfoot. Sightings of the monster peaked in the 1970s and 80s, even garnering attention from the New York Times. Carbondale attorney Christian Burrells saw a beast and made a report of it. Burrell recalled recently that the incident from 1973. He said he was 3 years old playing in a sandbox with his neighbor. It was getting towards dusk in his Westwood Hills neighborhood. After his buddy went home, Burrell said he stayed outside. "As I was out there, I saw something. I don't really remember the actual seeing of it," Burrell says. He said he turned around and looked up at his house. The lights were on as night had set in, and the windows glowed. Burrell said he had one thought: "Mommy." While the monster itself isn't clear in his head, some parts of his memory are. To this day, I have a really clear picture of being really afraid and turning around and looking at the house. When he went inside to tell his parents what he saw, they weren't too concerned. His dad, still dressed from work, was on the kitchen floor replacing a hinge on the refrigerator. "Okay, that's fine. It's time to go to bed," is what Burrell remembers being told when he announced his encounter. It wasn't until later that evening that his parents took a bit more seriously. He said a neighbor called his mother to say one of her children had seen something in the neighborhood. The neighbor who called, Burrell said, was a very conservative woman and not prone to exaggeration. Burrell's mother told the neighbor to call the police. The police came out and they brought their tracking dogs. Burrell states, though he admitted he was in bed at the time, the neighborhood was out listening to something crashing through the brush back there. Burrell said the story goes that the police chased it all the way to a barn in the woods, but Burrell said the dogs were too scared to go in. Eventually the dogs were tossed, but nothing found. And it gets away, Burrell says. "In my mind, I don't know what it was." The monster cropped up again about 15 years later in Murfreesboro, according to stories published in the Southern at the time. Bob Remen told reporters that he encountered the beast, which he said smelled terrible, at his salvage yard in '88. Remen described it as 10 feet tall with red eyes and yellow teeth. His mother told the Southern it smelled like a skunk that fell in a sewer. At that time, he provided sketches to the newspaper. When investigating these types of claims, embracing certainty of the uncertain is a part of it. I try to give people the benefit of the doubt, Starlick says. Virgil Smith has spent a considerable amount of time and money looking into strange sightings and weird happenings for people in southern Illinois. He's been at it for more than 2 decades and estimates he's spent about $250,000. He said there is one rule when talking with witnesses. Don't ever discredit anyone when you talk to them for any reason, because the first time you do, your research is over. There is an intense stigma attached to these sightings and stories for the witness, he states, and someone willing to come forward with an experience should be listened to. Lauren Coleman, one of the country's most noted and respected cryptozoologists, approaches everything with a scientific mind. In fact, Coleman studied science at Southern Illinois University, Carbondale. I had a very scientific and critical thinking approach and would not come out with it. Crazy theories, Coleman said. He has never ventured so far to surmise that Bigfoot had been dropped to Earth by a UFO, he said. I try to keep it in the middle. I just want the data. I just want information, Coleman said. Smith said he is one of similar mind. I've got to be able to pinch it, smell it, feel it, he said. Nothing that he tries to steer away from the paranormal and stays with things that he could be rooted in silence. Take, for example, his work in investigating Saline County's Tuttle Bottom Monster. Sightings of a hairy, long-snouted creature began in the 60s. Smith said he was asked to look into the matter about 8 or 10 years ago. What he found was not a creature out of mythology, but was, he believes, to be a known animal seen out of context. Smith said in his research he discovered that a zoo in Mount Vernon had been forced to shut down, right around the time of the sightings of the Tuttle Bottoms monster. The guy that owned a zoo didn't maintain his animals, Smith states. Through his investigation, Smith said he learned that the man had been visited by federal investigators who gave him 48 hours to find new homes for the animals or they would come and take them. His family and friends said he took them down through and scattered them throughout southern Illinois and released them. One of these animals he released was a giant anteater from Africa. The description of the anteater lined up quite well with the description witnesses provided of the Tuttle Bottoms monster. Smith said on the other animals of the zoo owner allegedly released matched description of other monsters reported in the southern eastern part of the state around that same time, including a hairy primate seen in Massac County. He said an old orangutan was among the animals he set loose, which likely explained his sighting. I gotta interrupt us really quick. The Tuttle Bottom monster was not quadruped, okay? It was bipedal, seen quadruped, just like a Dogman. Anyway, back to it. Sorry, guys. Not everything lines up neatly, though. Coleman said there is always room for the unknown in his type of research, but he said he tends to try to offer concrete explanations when he can. If I know it's something that's explainable, and I'm not going to hurt somebody's feelings, I think it helps the science, he says. I think a lot of new science comes from there. He pointed out to what he called the classic animals of discovery. The giant squid is an example of this, he states. Until about 2006, the creature's existence was only sailors' tales. But there's a conundrum here. Coleman admitted that cryptozoology is always left holding on to a list of unknown, potentially unbelievable hypotheses. The giant squid rested firmly in cryptozoology until it was confirmed and taken away from that field and brought into conventional science. That might fuel some of the intense skepticism. The search for the new can be all-consuming for some, but this is something Starrick said needs to be tempered. Not finding Bigfoot shouldn't always be seen as a failure. He said finding a new waterfall or another geographic landmark shouldn't be discounted. He said part of the search should be about being out in the wild and letting what happens happen. Don't go in the woods looking for Bigfoot. Bigfoot will find you, he said. Science aside, Coleman, Starrick, and Smith all agreed that these stories can build a part of the fabric of culture from southern Illinois to the mountains of Nepal. It is remarkable to me how these stories can kind of take hold for decades, later become extremely important, Coleman said. Thinking back on his time in southern Illinois, Coleman said there is a lot that makes the region unique for his research. Little Egypt is a very distinctive biological space, Coleman states. He also said the lower half of the state has a lot in common culturally with the South. The Southern nature lends itself to believing and sharing the stories, he said, adding that there is more sharing in the South. Smith said this is changing, though. With the internet, research is shifted. There are fewer and fewer mom-and-pop places to go and ask about local lore as the conversation shifts online. Burrell said he has seen a welcome shift in the way people view these monsters and their stories. Growing up, he said it was not cool to talk about seeing Bigfoot. People don't want there to be something unexplained, and they ridicule you, Burrell said. However, now the big muddy monster and other cryptids have been embraced as lovable mascots. Bullshit. Alright, so what did I mean by that last comment that I made? Well, that means that I do not believe that Dogman or Bigfoot mean us no harm. I truly, truly believe that these things are apex predators. And they are not some cuddly mascot. They're dangerous creatures. We have, honestly, no definitive proof of where they come from. Are they demonic? Are they interdimensional? Are they flesh and blood? Yes, there are people that will say, well, 100% demonic, 100% interdimensional. No, we don't know. You know, that's a theory, that's an opinion, and there is no definitive proof. Nothing. There are multiple stories, experiences stating demonic, multiple stories and theories stating interdimensional, and the same with flesh and blood. So if there are that many experiences differing in the whatever they are from and wherever they are, or whatever they are and wherever they're from, there definitely is no right answer, regardless. And also, there is no experts. So how can one person's opinion be the right opinion? Anyway, guys, thank you for supporting the channel. Your support is what makes this channel special and what continues for it to grow and go. Please, everyone, stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, our pets, our family, and friends. These creatures are real. They're out there. They're dangerous. Share this information with the people you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions and never stop looking for answers.